Hey, what is up everybody? Welcome to the Retro Wrestling Review Series, Season 8, Episode 13. And now I'm going to be covering NXT TakeOver Toronto. I'm really getting close to being done with the NXT Special Review Series. I have this one, then 2 more to go. But this show aired during Survivor Series weekend. It became part of that exclusive package. And I would probably say, and I hate to say this, but I would say after NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, like in between that and this show was kind of when NXT, I think, kind of went down a little bit. It didn't really feel like as big of a show as it was. It's still a pretty big brand. I think now it's not really doesn't really feel like as big of a brand as it was. But people, I think, will say that, and I can see what they're saying because no one talks about it maybe as much now anymore. No one buzzes about it, and I can kind of see what people are saying about that. I still think NXT is still a pretty big brand. You know, it still hosts pretty good weekly television television shows, and by that I mean network shows. The specials are still fantastic. Are they fantastic? Maybe they're not like fantastic, but they're still really good specials. I think they still deliver. And I think definitely NXT is still a big brand. It still has things on it that I like. But yeah, you can definitely feel that the NXT brand kind of went down a little bit. I'm not exactly sure what the cause of it was. Maybe because a lot of the big stars that they had ended up going to the main roster. Maybe it's just, NXT is kind of struggling because they had this big buzz, but now they're trying to just maintain, consistency. I'm not exactly sure what caused NXT that happened to NXT. I still think it's still a pretty big brand. But I'll admit it's not as big of a brand as it was back in 2015, and I don't, like I said, I think it definitely kind of has to do with the fact that a lot of the mainstream star power went up to the main roster. I think that's kind of what happened. But now that I've covered that, let's talk about. Let me cover the matches on this show. So we have a singles match. We have a Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament Finals match. We have an NXT Tag Team Championship match, an NXT Women's Championship match, and then we have the main event. It's going to be an NXT Championship match. So, if you actually look at the card on paper, it actually looked like a pretty damn good card. But only time will tell if it actually ended up delivering or not. Let's just get right into the review. I'm going to structure my review the same way as I did in the last episode, where I covered the pre-show all in one take, and then I'm going to cover the actual show all in a different take after each match or segment. So I hope you guys enjoy it, and let's just get right into it. Okay, so then we had the pre-show, and we had Charlie Caruso, Lita, and Mauro Ranallo on the panel for it. Charlie Caruso was kind of awkward on the panel, but she definitely improved doing this over time. But yeah, her first time she was very awkward, but I'm going to kind of cut her a break because it was her first time. But Charlie Caruso would go on to be the backstage interviewer for Monday Night Raw and host the NXT TakeOver specials. Lita was there for name recognition since she was a former women's champion and everything. Also, this would be her final NXT special panel because her contract would be up in November, and her final panel ended up being at Survivor Series. So it was kind of sad. And obviously, Mauro Ranallo was the best commentator that WWE had. He was the play-by-play commentator for SmackDown and the SmackDown exclusive pay-per-views. And eventually when 205 Live debuted, he was the play-by-play guy for 205 Live. But unfortunately in March of this year, in 2017, He ended up leaving WWE because of the bullying accusations that had gone on with JBL, which makes me hate JBL because JBL pretty much drove away the best commentator that WWE has ever had. So, you know, at least there was a possibility of Mauro Ranallo returning in the future because the WWE and Mauro Ranallo are in speaking terms. But it does make me a little bit sad to hear Mauro Ranallo's voice on commentary and things like that. So then we have the actual matches themselves, and I'm going to cover them now. I'll just say what they are. We have a singles match between Bobby Roode and Ty Dillinger. We have a Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament Finals match with Paul Ellering suspended above the ring inside a steel cage between the Authors of Pain and TM61. We have a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Tag Team Championships between #DIY and the Revival. We have an NXT Women's Championship match between Asuka and Mickie James. And then we have the main event. It's an NXT Championship match between Samoa Joe and Shinsuke Nakamura. So now that I've covered the matches, let me cover the build up to these matches. For the NXT Women's Championship match between Asuka and Mickie James. So Asuka was someone that had debuted in NXT in October of 2015, and she was running through everybody in the NXT Women's division. She was undefeated. She won the NXT Women's Championship in NXT TakeOver Dallas, and she ran roughshod everybody. She beat everybody in the women's division, and eventually Asuka started to say that nobody is ready to face Asuka anymore. So then NXT General Manager William Regal at the time, who's still the General Manager of NXT today, said that he found the perfect opponent for Asuka at NXT TakeOver Toronto. And who did he find? None other than Mickie James. Now Mickie James was in WWE. She made her debut in 2006. She was a former women's champion, a former Divas champion, and she had left WWE in 2010 and went on to join other promotions. She wrestled in TNA Impact Wrestling from 2010 to 2015, but then eventually she came back to WWE, and this was a huge moment because this was a a big name for Asuka to wrestle. Mickie James, like I said, had been all over the world, and Mickie James had cut a promo talking about how Asuka's ran through everyone in the women's division, but she hasn't run through her. It just said that it's one thing to be the best woman, but it's another thing to be great. And you're looking at the greatest women's wrestler in WWE today, and of all time. And that kind of led us to this match, a nice build-up match. Really, obviously the appeal was to see if Mickie James could be the one to finally defeat Asuka, and also the appeal was the fact that Mickie James was pretty much returning to WWE because this was her first match back with WWE since 2010. So, the feud worked for what it was. So then we have the build up for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics. Unfortunately, in July of 2015, the American Dream Dusty Rhodes ended up passing away, and he did a lot for NXT. I talk about that in one of the episodes. I'll post it right up here. But he did a lot for NXT. So so NXT decided to do a tournament to dedicate the memory of Dusty Rhodes, and they had the first one ever that culminated at NXT TakeOver Respect. So this was the second one ever, and you had the Authors of Pain and TM61 in it, and the Authors of Pain defeated hold on, I just gotta get to them. Where are they? the Authors of Pain defeated the Bollywood Boys in the first round to advance, who are now on SmackDown under the name the Sin Brothers, and in the quarterfinals they defeated No Way Jose and Rich Swann. No Way Jose is pretty much in the exact same spot he is in NXT. Rich Swann would go on to be on the main roster. He would win the Cruiserweight Championship in the first episode of 205 Live, and where he would end up dropping it at the Royal Rumble, and now he's in a really lame storyline. And then the Authors of Pain defeated hashtag DIY in the semifinals, so that's how they qualified. I'll mention what happens with hashtag DIY later on, and their aftermath later on in this video. But that's kind of, but that's who the Authors of Pain beat, so I'll repeat who they beat. They defeated the Bollywood Boys in the first round match, No Way Jose and Rich Swann in the quarterfinals, and hashtag DIY in the semifinals. And you know, the Authors of Pain 2 had debuted at NXT TakeOver the end, and pretty much ran roughshod over every tag team. In NXT, they had been undefeated. They ran roughshod. And TM61 debuted on an episode of NXT where they ended up wrestling hashtag DIY in a great match, and they would and they pretty much became a full-time tag team on NXT, and they ended up defeating Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli in the first round. Riddick Moss and Tino Sabatelli are pretty much in the exact same spot, pretty much job with tag teams. And in the quarterfinals, they defeated Austin Aries and Roderick Strong. Well, technically that's not what happened, because Austin Aries got injured in a match against Shinsuke Nakamura in a house show, so he was unable to compete. So instead, Shane Thorne defeated Roderick Strong in just a regular one-on-one match to advance in the tournament. And since then, Austin Aries, this would be his last appearance in NXT. Then he would go on to do commentary in 205 Live, and then he would be officially called up to the main roster. Then eventually he ended up joining the Cruiserweight division, where he competed for the Cruiserweight Championship at WrestleMania 33 but didn't win it, and he also wrestled for it at Payback 2017 but won by disqualification, which means he didn't win the title. And now he's going to be competing for the Cruiserweight Championship in a submission match at Extreme Rules 2017, so that's cool for Austin Aries. As for Roderick Strong, pretty much he ended up turning I don't know exactly how he turned face, but apparently somehow he turned face, and he's slowly starting to progress his way up the card in NXT. He hasn't exactly had a big win yet, but he's getting there. Alexander Wolf and Sawyer Fulton in the semifinals, and Alexander Wolf and Sawyer Fulton went on. They were members of Sanity. Alexander Wolf was stable, but Sylvester Sawyer Fulton. So I don't know, but Sawyer Fulton. Sorry, I keep messing up his name. So Sawyer Fulton ended up getting injured, so they had to write him out of the group. So he was kicked out of Sanity. So yeah, but I'll repeat who TM61 defeated. So TM61 defeated Riddick Moss and Tito Sabatelli. Shane Thorne defeated Roderick Strong, which allowed them to advance in the tournament. And they also defeated Alexander Wolf and Sawyer Fulton. And you know, TM61 were going to wrestle the Authors of Pain, which they had wrestled them before, where the Authors of Pain were able to knock off TM61 in that match and destroy them. The catch is that since Paul Ellering, who had aligned himself with the Authors of Pain, who was one of the greatest managers in the professional wrestling, since he interfered in the semifinals match and helped the Authors of Pain advance, wanted this match to be clean, decided to hang Paul Ellering up a steel cage so the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic semifinals could just be so it could be just a fair 2-2 tag team match. So that was the build up for the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic. It was actually a pretty good tournament, and it was a pretty decent build up, so I liked it. Then continuing, we have the NXT Tag Team Championship match build up between #DIY and the Revival. The reason why this match was happening was because this was a rematch from NXT TakeOver Brooklyn, where the Revival ended up defeating #DIY to retain their NXT Tag Team Championships, and then eventually Johnny Gargano, felt like he let the team down because he ended up tapping out to the reverse figure 4 leg lock by Dawson. Try to win the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics, where they were which is what they had come to do when they first survived in NXT, and they were actually supposed to face the Revival in the quarterfinals, but Dawson ended up faking a knee injury because the Revival would do whatever it takes to avoid getting in the win with #DIY because they claimed that they were top guys, and so, they ended up forfeiting the finals, and #DIY advanced, and then #DIY screwed them out of the semifinals against and the final episode of the Classics. So William Regal decided to make a rematch between the Revival NXT Tag Team titles, because they never forgot that Tag Team Champion takeover. And top guys in NXT was actually match on the show. It had months of story behind it, and it was awesome, and so defeated Samoa Joe to win the NXT Championship, and the mirror and realized he became obsessed with winning that title, and he realized that what he was doing was just too much. So he wanted to be respectful, and he asked for more if he could invoke his rematch. Well, he didn't really ask. Invoke his rematch clause. And Shinsuke Nakamura accepted. They shook hands, and Samoa Joe acted like he was going to be respectable about this. That this was going to be a new Samoa Joe, but it wasn't. Samoa Joe ended up attacking Shinsuke Nakamura from behind, completely wiped him out. He ended up hitting a Yoranagi on the steel steps and completely injured Shinsuke Nakamura. Nakamura had to be taken out on a stretcher. And Samoa Joe pretty much said that since he injured Shinsuke Nakamura, and he revealed all his injuries, he gave William Regal a time frame. He either brings him Nakamura, or he brings him the NXT Championship, or he's going to start laying waste to everybody on the roster. And then he Nakamura or the NXT Championship, and we got the return of Shinsuke Nakamura, and this led to a big brawl between Nakamura and Samoa Joe, where it had to be broken up by officials, and Shinsuke Nakamura ended up laying him out with the King Sasha, really standing tall, so that pretty much set the match in motion. Then they had a contract. Nakamura signed, so he would end it. Signed it anyway. A bunch of security. For the rematch, Samoa Joe versus Shinsuke Nakamura. This was a new and aggressive Samoa Joe. You can even say more. Shinsuke Nakamura revenge on Samoa Joe for injuring him. So we had the singles match build up between and Ty Dillinger. The reason this match was happening was because Bobby at NXT and that originally was in WWE. You know, he was in WWE when it was in the old developmental system. Ohio Valley Wrestling, also known as OVW. And he was actually the champion. He was the world champion down there. He was doing pretty well for himself. And then he was part of, the new Superstar Initiative in ECW in 2008. We mentioned that one loss after another. He released from WWE. It took him, I think he said 6 years to get back to WWE, and eventually he did get back to WWE. He said that this most he's doing his whole 10 chant, and it eventually caught on. But Bobby Roode said that's a cute story, but he's glorious. He talked about how NXT went to him to sign him to the WWE, and how Ty Dillinger's a loser, and he said that the only reason Ty Dillinger is going to be worth anything is because he's in the ring with Bobby Roode, and Ty Dillinger ended up having a brawl with Bobby Roode, to which Bobby Roode ended up escaping from, and Ty Dillinger talked about how he is going to kick Bobby Roode's ass, and then says that the only thing he's glorious at is running away from fights, and Bobby Roode ended up laying out Ty Dillinger from behind and hit the glorious DDT on the stage. And Bobby Roode talked about how this match is taking place in both their hometowns, Toronto, Canada, and he says that he's going to turn the biggest match into the first match, and he's going to embarrass him and make him look like a loser in front of his hometown. And that kind of led us to the fences, and I love this feud. It was a great feud, building up to the show. They were really starting to realize Ty Dillinger's potential. They had finally turned him face, and I was happy about it. And that was the whole pre-show. I actually enjoyed the pre-show. I thought it was actually pretty good. Now that I've covered that, let me cover the actual show itself. Okay, so we had the actual show. We had the introduction, which pretty much shows all the past people that came. All the moments of how NXT is taking over now, Toronto, Canada. Now it's NXT's turn. I thought it was a really good introduction. Then we, continued. We had Corey Graves Graves and Tom Phillips on commentary for this show, and Corey Graves was the heel commentator of NXT, Raw, and then eventually once 205 Live debuted, 205 Live, but then eventually him. But you know, he would commentary for NXT, and now he's for the main roster full time as a heel commentator, and now he's the best commentator that WWE has. And Tom Phillips, you know, I've been saying this for every episode. It's pretty much a douchebag. He goes on planes and leaves people text messages saying he's gonna face fuck them, and he screws people out of their jobs. So Tom Phillips is a douchebag and an absolutely terrible commentator. But for some reason the WWE has a hold on this guy because he's now the play-by-play guy in NXT, the play-by-play commentator in NXT, on SmackDown, and 205 Live, because he took Marwanawa's position since he left WWE, which is I think what Tom Phillips to take. The first match on the show, it was Bobby Roode versus and Bobby Roode comes out with a great entrance where he has a choir singing his theme song to the ring. I thought it was really cool. It would have been cooler if they didn't actually play his theme song. They just played the instrumental version, and then they had them playing the theme song. But maybe they wouldn't have been able to sing it right, or maybe they were afraid. You know, that I can understand that to a degree. We had the actual match itself, and the match I thought was a good match, good opening matchup, maybe a very good opening matchup. And Bobby Roode and Ty Dillinger just start facing off with each other. Dillinger looks like he's gonna kick his ass, and Roode goes to do his glorious thing. Dillinger beats the crap out of him. He clotheslines. He throws him into the barricade and hits a backdrop on him. Then he puts him in the ring, hits a ton of right hands. Then he eventually he misses something, and Roode clotheslines him from behind and by the win and hits Dillinger from behind. And he throws throat first into the barricade, which looked like it surprised the fan because he looks like he didn't see it coming. And then when he realizes Dillinger's about to get back in the win, which by the way, when the referee started trying to count Dillinger out to 10, and, the fans chanted 10, which I thought was what I was about to say was before Roode got the advantage, Roode was begging for mercy, and Dillinger himself like no, and then he stomped on Roode's hands, and it made him go do his 10 taunt because he was trying to shake his hands off, which was funny. But then anyhow, Roode hits an elbow right to the throat of Dillinger, and he dominates Dillinger for a few minutes. He hits a super. Dillinger kicks out, and he hits a low right to the back of the neck. Then he goes for a neck breaker, but Dillinger counters into a backslide. But Roode kicks out. Dillinger tries to make a comeback, but Roode throws him. And his back of the neck hits the turnbuckle, and then Roode hits a neck breaker on him, covers him. Dillinger kicks out. And then eventually Ty Dillinger starts to make his comeback. He really starts to go off on Bobby Roode, and he goes for the super kick. Roode counters it, and Roode tries to escape, but Dillinger goes after him. He throws him ribs first into the apron, and then he goes to go off the top rope. Roode catches him and hits a glorious flex on him. but Dillinger's able to kick out of it, and Rude hits. And then Rude goes for the glorious DDT. Dillinger counters and hits a roll up on him. Rude kicks out, and then eventually Rude tries to cheat. Dillinger goes for the super kick again. Rude tries to cheat to win and use the rope. He rolls him up, but Rude thinks he's won. He's like, no, you didn't win. And then Dillinger rolls him up. Rude kicks out. Then Dillinger hits a super kick on Rude, and he covers him. Rude kicks out, and then they both get to their feet and they both start trading blows at each other. And Rude goes for the glorious DDT. Dillinger counters into a sharpshooter, and Rude's just able to get to the ropes. And then Dillinger goes for the tiebreaker again. Rude throws him neck shoulder first into the one side of the post, and then he throws him shoulder first into the other side and hits the glorious DDT for the win. And Bobby Roode goes over. Overall, this was I thought a really good match, a really great way to open up the show. And afterwards, Ty Dillinger, after Roode leaves, Ty Dillinger leaves all disappointed that he lost because he really thought he needed this big victory, but he got a big standing ovation. And both of them were really over here because obviously this was in their home country. Roode was in his hometown because this was Toronto, Canada, and Dillinger, he actually isn't from Toronto, Canada, he's from Niagara Falls, Canada. So this was really good for both guys. It was a, really put both guys on the map. And the aftermath came. Bobby Roode would go. They would actually end up meeting each other in a fatal 4-way elimination match, where the winner was going to become the #1 contender to the NXT Championship. Where Bobby Roode ended up last eliminating Ty Dillinger, and then Bobby Roode in NXT TakeOver San Antonio would go on to win the NXT Championship, and he pretty much now is the top heel in NXT, which is cool for him. Ty Dillinger would go on to feud with Sanity since they attacked him, and he finally won. He won that feud. He went on to in the Royal Rumble at the #1 spot, which was nice, but he didn't win it. He went on to officially be called up to the main roster the night on the SmackDown after WrestleMania 33. He's geared up to have a match at Backlash 2017. So both guys benefited from this match, and both guys became pretty decent sized stars from this match, which is nice to hear. Okay, so then we had win inside a steel cage. The Authors of Pain versus TM61, and overall I thought this was a good match here. Both teams with each other. Nick Miller dives on, I don't know how to tell them apart. I mean, I know how, but I wasn't watching for the tattoos, so he dives on one of them, and Shane Thorne tries to dives on the other one, and then one of the Authors of Pain picks up Shane Thorne. He climbs the structure that is holding Paul Ellerin's cage, and he's gonna hit an electric chair off. And then Shane does a flip dive off the structure and takes out both members. As the referee's trying to get Nick Miller back to his corner, one of the authors playing chalk block, and he spins and hits the back of his head right on the apron, which looked pretty brutal. Block slam stop combo, which was cool. Then eventually going off on both members of the Authors of Pain. He hits that member of the Authors of Pain and him, but Shane Thorne makes the save, but then the Authors of Pain are going to hit the sandwich, but TM61 hit double hurricanranas on both guys, and they ended up colliding into each other. Then they hit Thunder Valley on one of the members of the Authors of Pain. What the members of the Authors of Pain lay out Nick Miller with a power bomb. No, Shane Thorne with a power bomb. Then they tag the other one, and that one that's legal. Big boots. Shane Thorne and the Authors of Pain hit the final chapter for the win, and they win the second tag team classics. Holds their, actually, I forgot one spot in that match is that Paul Ellern tried to hand a chain to one of the members of the Authors of Pain, but Shane Thorne ended up countering it. So that's the spot I missed. Like he was going to use it, but Shane Thorne hit a shoulder to the gut before he could use it. So overall, the Authors of Pain won clean without the interference because the chain didn't technically need to be used, so they won clean. And afterwards, William Regal and Dustin Rhodes, who plays Goldust, come out and they shake their hands, raise their hands and stuff, and they all take a picture with the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classics trophy. And this was a huge moment for the Authors of Pain. And the aftermath of this came as over San Antonio, they would end up winning the NXT Tag Team Championships, and they still match in NXT yet, so that's really damn impressive. And right now, at least I think so. Anyways, I don't really know. And please don't spoil it. The NXT Tag Team Champions. As for TM61, they probably wouldn't have benefited more than they did from this match. However, Shane Thorne ended up getting injured, so he got injured in January, and they said he's going to be out like 8 months. So that's kind of stopped TM61's push. I'm assuming they would have been pushing. They're probably still all going to beat the causes the Authors of Pain to first lose. They're going to be the team that defeats, that gives them the first. That's what I'm trying to say. But yeah, ironically enough, I actually completely forgot about TM61 just because I haven't seen him or anything like that. It's been a while since I've seen TM61, and I forgot how good of a team they were. They were actually a pretty good team. But overall, this was a nice, solid tag match here with the right team going over in the right way.
Okay, so as you guys can tell, I'm in a different room now because my cousin has to do homework and she needs to focus and stuff, so I came in here to do finish the review. And it took me a little longer than I thought to get this up because we ended up going out to eat and stuff, so I'm here to give you the video now. So we had the next match. It was a 2 out of 3 falls match for the NXT Tag Team Championships. NXT Tag Team Champions, The Revival versus #DIY. I watched this match twice so I could really fully talk about it. But I kind of lied. I watched the third fall twice to the end because because I was kind of getting flustered when I talked about it originally. So now I can give you a full analysis on this match. So the match starts off, Johnny Gargano and Dawson chain wrestle each other for a little bit. He hits a roll up on Dawson. Dawson kicks out, and then the Revival try to cheat, but Tommaso Ciampa comes in the ring, preventing him from doing so. And #DIY and the Revival have a big brawl, and the Revival clear out #DIY clear out the Revival, and the Revival have to regroup. So then Tommaso Ciampa ends up being tagged into the match. So then the Revival dominate Tommaso Ciampa for a little bit. They hit a drop toe hold into a knee to the back, and they pretty much pick him apart for a few minutes. And then he tags in Johnny Gargano, and Gargano goes off on the Revival. and he goes for the spear through the ropes onto Dash, but the Revival counter it into the Shadow Machine, cover him, and the Revival win the first fall. I thought it was a nice quick first fall, and it made it the fans kind of doubt hashtag DIY about whether or not they're going to be able to come back, so I did like it. And at this point, the Revival really get the heat on Johnny Gargano. They end up doing the fist and stomping ground to Gargano. Gargano tries to fight back. He hits a drop kick and hits a DDT on Dawson, and he's just about to make the tag. However, Dawson tries to pull down Tommaso Ciampa before he can get to him, and Ciampa sees him coming, and he kicks him off, and Dawson distracts the official, and when Gargano does get the tag in, the referee doesn't see it, so he waves off the match, then Tommaso Ciampa, as the referee's trying to get Ciampa out of the match, the Revival use this opportunity to cheat and pick apart Johnny Gargano, and Tommaso Ciampa chases after Dash, and the referee's trying to hold him back, and the Revival hit the heart attack behind the referee's back on Johnny Gargano. Dawson covers him, Gargano kicks out, and then the Revival continue to get the heat on Johnny Gargano. Dawson gets him into a glory special, and then eventually Gargano is able to make the hot tag to Tommaso Ciampa. He hits a missile drop kick on Dawson, and he hits a splash in the corner. He really starts making his comeback. He hits a reverse leg lariat on Dawson, covers him, Dawson kicks out. He hits a knee in the corner. He hits 3 German suplexes and a knee right to the side of his head, covers him, Dawson kicks out of it. And then what else? Tommaso Ciampa tries to hype up Johnny Gargano, but Dawson ambushes him from behind. The Revival go to pick apart Gargano, and and they go to hit like the power bomb on him. Gargano pushes Dash off the apron, off the top rope, and Tommaso Ciampa hits a high cross body, covers him, he kicks out, and then as Dash has the referee distracted, hashtag DIY hit the super kick knee strike combo from the corner, which they now call Meet Me in the Middle, and they win the second fall, and then it's all tied up 1-1, and the match was already going really well, but this is when the match really starts getting going. Both teams really took it to each other. Tommaso Ciampa hits a bunch of clotheslines, and he takes his elbow pad off, goes for a big clothesline, but Dawson hits a right hand on him, and he goes for a roll. He rolls up Dash, but Dash ends up kicking out, and he pushes Tommaso Ciampa into an uppercut, and Dawson hits a German suplex on him. Dash covers him, but Tommaso Ciampa kicks out. Johnny Gargano gets tagged in. He hits a springboard DDT in the wind onto Dash, covers him. He kicks out, and then the Revival start to pick apart Gargano again, and Tommaso Ciampa ends up kicking Dash off the apron. He hits a roll up on Dawson. Dawson kicks out, and then Dash grabs grabbed one of the NXT Tag Team Championships, and he goes to have it used, but Gargano clotheslines himself and Dash out of the ring, and Tommaso Ciampa goes for a big super kick, but Dawson uses the NXT Tag Team Championship to block it, and this ends up hurting Johnny Gargano's knee, and this ends up busting Dawson open, and Dawson acts like he still got kicked in the head, and he hits a he gets him into the inverted figure four leg lock, the same move that Johnny Gargano tapped out at NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2. And Gargano, it looks like the same thing's going to happen, but this time he's able to fight through the pain and he's able to get to the ropes before to cause a break. And the Revival are going to take a page out of hashtag DIY's books, and they go for Meet Me in the Middle. But Gargano ducks it, and Dawson and Dash accidentally super kicks Dawson in the face, and hashtag DIY hit Shattered Machine onto Dash. They cover Gargano covers them, and Dawson is just able to break it up. But I think that which was a huge surprise, because I actually thought, because of the story and because of how much heels the Revival are, it kind of would have made some sense to have them lose the titles off their own finishing move, but it didn't happen. And then what else happens? The Revival try to switch places. Dash rolls out of the ring, and Dawson covers his head, and he hits a roll up on Gargano, and the referee catches him though, and then what else? Tommaso Dawson throws Ciampa into the steel post, and Dash hits a chop block on Gargano, and Dash goes for the inverted figure four leg lock, but Gargano's able to turn it into like a submission move where he has like his head crossed, kind of like an octopus stretch sort of, and Dawson tries to stop it, but Gargano gets him into an armbar, and both members of the Revival are trapped in the submission move, and they're both trying to fight through the pain. They both hold each other's hands so that way they won't tap out, and Dawson's telling Dash not to tap out, but both members of the Revival tap out at the same time, and hashtag DIY win the third and final fall, and they become the new NXT Tag Team Champions. I thought this match was fantastic. I probably missed some spots, but that tends to happen when you have such a great match. And I thought the in-win work in this match was great, but even the story in this match, how the hashtag DIY had to come back from two and get two falls on the Revival added to this match. The fact that you finally had the hashtag DIY win the NXT Tag Team Championships after the chase that they had. This was the perfect match for the blow-off. They did things like having the inverted figure four leg lock, where you thought that Gargano was going to tap, because that's the move that got him to tap the first time. So there was a lot of storyline elements in play, and I thought it worked fantastic in this match. And the aftermath of this match is this match ended up launching off these tag teams huge. Hashtag DIY and the Revival would have one final match on an episode of NXT for the NXT Tag Team titles, where hashtag DIY retained the championships. And this match was, when the NXT did the yearly awards, was voted the match of the year. It was voted the match of the year out of all WWE matches. It was voted the number one match on WWE.com. This match gets a lot of praise. And the aftermath for both teams itself is hashtag DIY would lose the NXT Tag Team Championships at NXT TakeOver San Antonio to the Authors of Pain. And when they went to have the rematch, the Revival wanted a shot at the NXT Tag Team titles, so they screwed them out of it. So it led to a triple threat tag team match for the titles between the Revival, the Authors of Pain, and hashtag DIY, where the Authors of Pain won, and the Revival would get caught up to Raw the night after WrestleMania 33, and hashtag DIY is still down in NXT, and they have a rematch coming up for the NXT Tag Team Championships and NXT TakeOver Chicago. So overall, both teams benefited huge from this match and this feud. So no complaints at all there. This was a fantastic 2 out of 3 falls match. Okay, next match was an NXT Women's Championship match. NXT Women's Champion Asuka versus Mickie James. You know, Mickie James obviously got a huge reaction when she came out. This is the first time we had seen Mickie James, like I said, in a WWE win in 6 years. I do hate, though, when wrestlers leave WWE and they've gone and wrestled in other companies like TNA, Impact Wrestling and stuff. They act like they didn't wrestle for 6 years. And they did that with Mickie James. So it's just stupid. Especially, too, if they're saying that to, like, fans that are watching NXT, and the fans that watch NXT are fans that also watch other wrestling companies. You get what I'm saying? But this match I thought was a good match. I thought I thought these women had good chemistry. I think that you would expect the match to be better than with the competitors that they had. You know, Mickie James and Asuka were two great women wrestlers, and you would kind of expect them to have better matches than they did. A better match than they did. I think what they kind of had to face too was no matter what match followed that NXT Tag Team Championship match, the crowd was going to be kind of dead for it, and they kind of were a little bit dead during this match. The crowd wasn't as rowdy. That's why I kind of think maybe it was a mistake to main event the NXT, to not main event the NXT Championship, to not main event the NXT Tag Team Championship match, just because, then that wouldn't happen. Maybe if I was booking this show, I would have put the NXT title match where the NXT Tag Team Championship match was, then the NXT Tag Team Championship match in the main event. I just think this I think that was kind of bad placement. I get you want a main event with the NXT Championship match, but the NXT Tag Team title match I think would have been a better match to main event NXT TakeOver Toronto. But anyhow, continue. I'll start talking about the match now. Mickie and Asuka have a face-to-face confrontation with each other. They start doing some chain wrestling, to which neither woman really gets the upper hand on the other, and then they both kind of shake hands, and they go back to chain wrestling some more. Mickie James gets the upper hand on Asuka. She hits a drop kick on her, and Asuka has to retreat and kind of rethink her game plan. And Mickie James holds the ropes to allow Asuka to get back in to kind of play a little bit of mind games with her. And then Asuka and Mickie go back to chain wrestling each other. They both kick each other in the ribs. Asuka hits a hip attack on Mickie James, knocking her out of the ring. And Asuka does the same thing Mickie does to play mind games, holds the ropes for her. And Mickie goes again in the ring. She blows a kiss at Asuka. And she goes again in the ring. Asuka hits a hip attack on her, knocking her off the apron. Then she goes to attack her some more. Mickie hits a mick kick on her and a hurricane on her on the outside. And Asuka puts her in the ankle lock and hits a German suplex outside, which looked really cool. And Asuka dominates the matchup for a few minutes. She goes for the hip attack on Mickie James while she's outside the ring, after she had put her in an octopus stretch against the ropes. And Mickie moves out of the way, but it still really doesn't matter because Asuka just got hung up on the rope. She didn't really take any damage from it, which I like that they kind of showed that. And Asuka hits a ton of kicks on Mickie James, and she goes for one right off the head. But Mickie James counters into into a half Boston Crab. And then she turned it into the Muda lock, and Asuka's able to get to the ropes. Mickie James then kind of starts to make a comeback a little bit. She hits a West Coast pop off the top rope. Well, no, a Cena senton off the top rope, and Asuka kicks out of it. And pretty much Mickie James out wrestles Asuka. Asuka gets her into the cross arm breaker though, and Mickie gets her foot on the ropes, and then Mickie hits the mick kick on Asuka, covers her. Asuka's able to kick out of it. No, Asuka gets her foot on the ropes, and then the finish comes when Asuka hits a kick on Mickie, gets her into the Asuka lock. At first, she struggles to get into it, and then Asuka fully gets her in the move, and Mickie James taps out. The match kind of had an awkward finish because it kind of ended out of nowhere. And when the match kind of started to really get going, the match ended, which I didn't really like. But other than the match, I thought this match was good. And you know, this was more just to put Asuka on the map than to be just a great wrestling match. And this did just that. It showed that Asuka could really was unbeatable because a former women's and Divas champion like Mickie James still couldn't find enough to beat Asuka. And afterwards, Mickie James goes to shake her hand in respect, but Asuka kind of smiles at her and holds up the championship and says, pretty much saying that I don't care about respect, all I care about is my title, and walks off, kind of showing that she started to become full of herself. And they were still kind of planting the seeds to turn Asuka heel. She officially wasn't definitely face anymore, but she definitely was playing more of the tweener role, which I kind of liked that transition for Asuka because it made sense. And afterwards, everybody gives Mickie James a standing ovation. And then the aftermath for both women came. Asuka is still undefeated in WWE. She, I believe, has the longest undefeated streak in professional wrestling, which is really damn impressive. And she's also the longest reigning NXT Women's Champion in WWE history. And she's also the longest reigning NXT Champion of any kind in WWE history. And so Asuka's become a huge star, and Mickie James really helped put Asuka on the map. And the good thing about Asuka working with Mickie James is Mickie James was able to teach her kind of how to work more of a WWE style match and kind of make Asuka better because she was someone that was a veteran. Mickie James would go on to return to the main roster on SmackDown, and she would wrestle on the SmackDown roster for a little bit. She didn't really have the best run on the SmackDown roster, unfortunately, which kind of sucked for Mickie. And now because of the Superstar shakeup, she was drafted to Raw. Before that, she had tried to go for the SmackDown Women's title, but failed. And then during the Superstar shakeup, she was drafted to Raw, where she really hasn't done anything. So I kind of wonder. I know I like seeing Mickie James back in WWE, but with the run she's having right now, I kind of wonder if this should have just been a one-time thing, her coming back, because her run on the main roster has been not the greatest. And I guess she's there to put over other talent, but they don't even feature her really all that much, so it's pretty damn stupid. It's like they don't have enough room for Mickie James. So, but overall, I would say both women. Mainly Asuka benefited. Mickie James didn't really benefit, and this match didn't really hurt Mickie James because she was a veteran. She already had name recognition. Asuka, this benefited a lot, which it was the person that it needed to benefit. So it did accomplish that job. Okay, so then we had the main event. It was a NXT Championship match. NXT Champion Shinsuke Nakamura versus Samoa Joe. And I thought this was a great main event. NXT Tag Team title match still should have main evented after seeing this, even though I can kind of understand why they main evented this match, but I'll talk about it when I get there. But Shinsuke Nakamura had another good entrance. He came out and a bunch of people were just playing the violin to his theme song. Good entrance. Problem with it is it really didn't matter because you couldn't hear them playing it because they still had the violin playing during Shinsuke Nakamura when his theme song actually hit, so you couldn't even hear him. It was still a cool entrance, but I mean it was just weird. But they wouldn't. I don't know why they wouldn't have like them actually play his theme song with the violin, cut out the violin on the actual theme, and yeah, it's just weird. But we had the actual match itself, and I thought the match, like I said, was great. And I like how there was no chain wrestlings right away. There was just a fight. This match was a fight in the beginning, just because of everything that these two had done to each other. It made sense. Shinsuke Nakamura immediately just kicks Samoa Joe, and they get into like a exchange, into a striking exchange. and Joe kicks one of Nakamura's legs, and his leg he kind of tweaks his leg a little bit. But Nakamura beats the crap out of Samoa Joe. He tries to do the spot where he puts his head on the guy's not chest, but his stomach, and swings his arms around. But Joe hits a knee right to the ribs, and Nakamura continues to try to play mind games, but Joe's just not having it. And Nakamura kicks Samoa Joe. He stomps on him in the corner, and then Joe has to escape, and Nakamura brawls with Joe on the outside. He kicks him over into the fans, and Nakamura and Joe brawl in the crowd for about maybe a few seconds, and then Nakamura throws Joe over the barricade. And I like that they actually brawled in the crowd. I thought that was really and that the referee kind of push back on the rules a little bit, because sometimes it's nice when there's a big stakes match that they will do that. And then Joe and Nakamura fight back in the ring. Joe hits a splash and an enziguri in the corner, covers Nakamura. He kicks out. He dominates the match for a little bit, but then Nakamura hits a big kick, and he hits a ton of knees right under Samoa Joe, right to the side of his head. And then he goes to run at him in the corner, but Samoa Joe hits a Yoranagi coming out of it, and he covers him. Nakamura kicks out, and then he tries to hit it on the steps. Actually, no, that's not what happens next. And then Nakamura and Joe dominates Nakamura for a few more seconds. Nakamura makes a comeback, hits a clothesline, an elbow drop, and a knee drop right to his face, covers him. Nakamura kicks out, and then Samoa Joe hits like an atomic drop with Nakamura's legs crossed, and really starts to target the legs of Shinsuke Nakamura. He gets him into a half Boston Crab. He hits like a weird half Boston Crab type move on him, and he hits a power bomb. Nakamura kicks out of it, and he turns it into the Boston Crab. Then he turns it into the crossface, into the STF, and then he turns it into the crossface. Joe throws Nakamura out of the ring. He goes to hit the Yoranagi on the steps, but Nakamura fights out of it. And he goes to attack him some more, but Joe hits a kick right to the chest. And then Nakamura hits an enziguri, and he starts making his comeback. He hits a kick while Joe's on the top turnbuckle, and Nakamura goes for the cross arm breaker, but Joe reverses it into a pin. And then what else? Samoa Joe hits a atomic drop, a big boot, and the senton. Nakamura kicks out of that, and then Joe hits an enziguri when Nakamura tries to go off the top rope, setting Nakamura into the apron, and then he goes to attack him some more. Nakamura hits an enziguri himself, and he hits a knee right to his head while he's on the apron, and then he hits the knee to the chest off the middle rope. But Nakamura can't capitalize to make the pin because he hit his head on the back of the mat. So then they both start trading shots with each other. Joe gets him into a knee bar. Nakamura gets to the ropes. What else? Nakamura hits the inverted explosive suplex. Joe kicks out of that, and he goes for the Kinshasa. Joe counters with the scoop slam, covers Nakamura. Nakamura kicks out, and then Joe goes for the muscle buster, but Nakamura counters into like a roll up, but he breaks it and hits a Kinshasa while Joe's on the ground, covers him. Joe kicks out, and then Nakamura goes for a second Kinshasa, but Joe counters into the Corkia clutch, and Nakamura reverses it into a pin, but Joe kicks out of that, and then Joe hits a Nakamura goes for a German suplex. Joe hits one of his own, and he hits a German suplex. Then he hits a dragon suplex into a Kimura plex, which is a straight jacket suplex. And he covers him after that, and Nakamura kicks out. And at this point, Joe got busted open. I don't know exactly how, but he did. And then Nakamura hits a Kinshasa to the back of the head, knocking Joe out of the ring. And the referee goes to check on Samoa Joe because he thinks he's been knocked out. And Nakamura goes outside the ring. Joe shoves the official, hits a low blow on Nakamura, and hits a Uranagi on the bottom of the steps, the same way that he took out Shinsuke Nakamura before the show. And then he hits a muscle buster on Nakamura in the ring, and he covers him, gets the victory, and Samoa Joe wins the NXT Championship for a second time. And this was a history-making moment because this was because Samoa Joe was the first superstar ever to become a two-time NXT champion. So afterwards he celebrates, and a lot of people I think complain about this booking decision because they pretty much had Nakamura have his first title match and lose. I actually kind of like this booking decision for a couple of reasons. The first reason is it continued the feud between Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe. The second reason is because they had Samoa Joe look like a beast and take out everybody on the roster. This actually helped to validate him as a monster. The third reason is it was a history-making moment. Not every history-making moment's good, but but it was nice to see that there was a two-time NXT champion, because now it actually takes away because the predictability, and not predictability is always not always a bad thing, but every time the champion who loses his title, whether it's the NXT title, the tag, or the women's, you always just assume that when he goes to get his rematch, he's not going to win it because he's probably going to get called up to the main roster. And it didn't end up happening. And now that kind of takes away, and you kind of left to question whether or not they're actually going to lose or not. So I like that. And it still actually led off into a nice, story. Because Shinsuke Nakamura, I think they knew that NXT was going to be in Osaka, Japan in a couple of weeks, and this kind of segues to the aftermath of where both guys went. And I think they wanted to have Shinsuke Nakamura actually go into that match as the challenger for the title and actually win the title and get more of a reaction, which makes sense because that's exactly what happened. Shinsuke Nakamura will go on to win back the championship and become the second superstar ever to become a two-time NXT champion. I always get that wrong. And then eventually Nakamura and Samoa Joe the next week would finally blow off their feud, and Shinsuke Nakamura would defeat Samoa Joe to retain his championship in a steel cage match, and that would be Samoa Joe's last match in NXT. And Samoa Joe then would go on to debut the night after the Royal Rumble on the Monday Night Raw, and he pretty much kind of looked like a beast since then. So that's good for him. Shinsuke Nakamura would go on to lose the NXT Championship to Bobby Roode in NXT TakeOver San Antonio, and then he would go on to lose his rematch in NXT TakeOver Orlando, where that would be his final match in NXT. And then he was called up to the main roster of the SmackDown after WrestleMania, and he had a nice send-off on an episode of NXT. And then he pretty much now just had his first match at Backlash, which I haven't seen yet, so I will let you know whether or not he won or lost. And I did like the way, this all culminated. However, I would have done this differently just because now that I know now what happened, and this is kind of like, more of a hindsight thing, obviously. But what I would have done is I still would have kept the finish of Samoa Joe winning the NXT Championship, but instead of having the blow-off match with Shinsuke Nakamura and Samoa Joe, I wouldn't have had them have any more matches up until NXT TakeOver San Antonio, where I would have that exact same cage match, except obviously a little bit better, where Shinsuke wins the title and the loser has to leave NXT, to which that would send Samoa Joe on Raw the next week, following the Rumble. And then I would have, instead of Bobby Roode win the NXT Championship at that show, I would have Shinsuke Nakamura lose the title to Bobby Roode in NXT TakeOver Orlando during WrestleMania weekend, kind of given the big pop moment. And then because Shinsuke Nakamura didn't even end up wrestling, I would, instead of having him, the opponent that he wrestles at Backlash, I would have that just get announced like it was at NXT TakeOver Dallas, that he's coming. Dolph Ziggler, who's the opponent that he's wrestling, will say that he feels like he's the best, and the commissioner of SmackDown, Shane McMahon, would come out and say, you think you're the best? Well, we just signed a new guy to SmackDown. He's set to debut at Backlash. That would be Shinsuke Nakamura. And, you have Shinsuke not show up on the main roster until Backlash. And, but you still have him finish his stuff in NXT, since NXT TakeOver Chicago and Backlash were both in the same state. I would have Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby would have the final match in NXT at NXT TakeOver Chicago, the match that they had in real life. And you have Bobby Roode talk down Shinsuke Nakamura, saying the same thing, that he's just old, that his knees worn down and beat up. But he talked about how he's not focused on Bobby Roode. He's looking ahead to Dolph Ziggler. And you still have Nakamura lose, obviously, because you can't have him go up with that NXT title. And then you have Shinsuke Nakamura debut the night after, and where he defeats Dolph Ziggler. I think that would actually generate some buzz, and you get it actually ends up kind of, I think, working things out. Because Samoa Joe didn't even end up debuting at the Royal Rumble. He could have had one final NXT special match. And Shinsuke Nakamura could have had one final NXT special match, especially since it's just better than him being on the main roster, not doing anything for the first month. So I think that's a better storyline right there. But that's I pretty much just kind of did like a booking video within this segment. But overall, I thought the NXT Championship match, though, was really good. And I can understand why this main event, because it was a history-making moment for NXT. They had their first ever two-time NXT champion, and I really enjoyed the NXT title match. I thought this match was better than the match that they had in NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, just because of the fact that this match had a little bit more story behind it, and you could feel the intensity in it, and both guys, you could feel like wanted to kill each other. So I thought this match actually ended up being better. This was probably the best match that they've had together. So overall, I thought this was a really good NXT Championship match. Okay, so then we had the Facebook Live interview with Triple H, who was being interviewed by Kathy Kelly, and he pretty much just ran down the NXT TakeOver Toronto card and just kind of gave his thoughts about the matches. He previewed Survivor Series for 2016, which I'll review of that on the Retro Wrestling Review Series will probably come in the future. But something that they did bring up that I didn't even think to mention is this was their second ever NXT special to go overseas, and yeah, it ended up being a pretty decent success. So the Facebook Live interview I thought was actually pretty decent. Okay, so now let me give you my star ratings and then my overall thoughts on the show. So starting with the star ratings, for the singles match, I'm going to give that match 3.5 stars because it had the good storytelling in it, and the match I thought was really good. You can tell these guys really hated each other. The crowd made this match. For the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament Finals match, I'm going to give that 2.5 stars because I thought the match was a decent tag team match. The right team went over in the right way. For the NXT Tag Team Championship match, I'm going to give that 4.25 stars, just because the match was fantastic. It had great storytelling, great tag team wrestling, great tag team psychology. The match flowed really well. It was booked tremendously, and the right team went over in the end. So that was really good. For the NXT Women's Championship match, I'm going to give that match 3 stars, just because of the fact with the two competitors that were in that match, I thought it would have delivered a little bit more, but the match still I thought was a good match. The right person went over, and it built up the right person in the right way, and the finish was, but the finish kind of too was kind of weird. So, and it was in pretty much the dead spot kind of the show. And then for the NXT Championship match, I'm gonna give that match probably 4.5 stars because I thought the storytelling in that match was always great. The intensity was great. The in-win product was great. and I thought overall the white person went over in the right way. So I thought that match was 4.5 stars. So now let me repeat them. For the singles match, I'm going to give that match 3.5 stars. For the Dusty Rhodes Tag Team Classic Tournament Finals match, I'm going to give that match 2.5 stars. For the NXT Tag Team Championship match, I'm going to give that match 4.75 stars. No, 4.75 stars. And for the NXT Women's Championship match, I'm going to give that match 3 stars. And then for the NXT Championship match, I'm going to give that match 4.5 stars. And overall, I thought this show was actually I thought this was a really good show here. It had really good matches. The show flowed really well. All the white people went over in the right ways. This show actually drew 12,649 people in attendance. And yeah, the show flowed very well. It felt like a big show, and I thought the show delivered overall. Just some of the matches didn't deliver up to their potential, and it's a good show to watch, but it's not as good as like the past takeovers or NXT specials. So overall, those are my thoughts on this show, and that's pretty much it, guys. Please make sure to subscribe to the Owen the Talkinator and CM Brothers channel, and also make sure to subscribe to this channel as well for other content, and make sure to subscribe to all the channels down below in the description box. And that's pretty much it, guys. Talk to you later.